solid.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson might be the most overrated player in the league.
You lose for a sixth straight year, no matter what the circumstances are. It's a joke.
Who's going to overtime goal?
You know what? Just Barry Coccagnato.
KK!
Yeah! Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm changing my mind. Bro.
Oh, man!
Welcome to Uncontested, episode 64. Our guest for this episode is the Athletic senior NHL and Minnesota writer. You can catch him on Bally Sports, and he's a co-host of Worst Seats in the House podcast with close to 200K followers on Twitter and the recipient of the Red Fisher Award in 2017 for being the top reporter as voted by his peers in the PHWA. It's safe to say he's one of hockey's biggest names. Can't talk. The Athletic clearly treats him like it with this National League hotel room that we get to be in here. But thanks for having us and thanks for coming on, Mr.
Yeah,
Michael
no problem.
Russo.
Hopefully Athletic doesn't get mad at the room that I got here. It's probably I actually, believe it or not, I don't think this is the biggest suite that I've ever gotten. I've gotten some presidential suites some places, yeah. But that's kind of the perk of traveling as much as I did. I showed up at the Sheraton here and they just gave me this massive ridiculous suite.
Oh, wow, the VIPs must have been coming in.
And when we arranged to do the podcast, I'm like, this is actually perfect. You know, you guys are going to the Canadiens game, and we're a block away from the arena, and this works out.
Yeah, it worked out well. I mean, one of our best friends of the show for sure. Yeah. We've been meaning to do this for a long time, and we're happy to finally do it.
No, it's awesome to be here in person, really. When did you get into Montreal?
I got here on, what day is today? Tuesday?
Yeah.
So I got here on...
What
day was it? Sunday. Okay. Wild played a noon game or 1 p.m. game in Boston, and I wound up. So originally, I could have flown here even that night and had as many off nights as the Wild had here, which will be interesting to see how they play tonight with 3 off nights in Montreal. But originally, I was actually going to Cape Cod. The Wild's director of amateur scouting, Judd Brackett, who you know well as a Canucks fan, he owns a couple restaurants in Cape Cod, and I was going to go out there and have dinner at one of his restaurants. But he's actually out in BC right now scouting some junior tournament there, or something's going on there.
I know Connor Bedard.
So it didn't work out well, but glad you guys can come on out. You said that this is your first ever on remote location podcast, so honored to be the first.
Oh man, I felt kind of bad because we were in here 15 minutes setting up because it's a big production. We had the
you got a goal light and everything,
the lights, everything out here. But the Minnesota Wild, when I knew that there was a chance that we'd be interviewing you around this time, I looked at the Wild schedule and it was a tough one. They started with the Rangers and then played the Avalanche shortly after that. LA, they improved. They added your guy, Kevin Fiala. So, it was not an easy start to the season, but the record is, as we talked about, pretty underwhelming. So, what do you make of that start to the season?
Well, 1-3-1 going into tonight's game in Montreal, and you're right, they had a tough schedule, but the Wild, they want to consider themselves one of the elite teams in the league. So, to me, the strength of schedule shouldn't be at all a factor. They were 5th best in the league last year. In overall points. So, it's an underwhelming start to say the least. I got together with Bill Guerin on Sunday here in Montreal, the GM of the Wild, and he's obviously not happy with the way that they started. He's not going to overreact and, start trading everybody and go into the room and tear paint off the wall and all that type of stuff. But he wants to see them start to get to work starting the rest of this road trip here, because these are, I think a lot of people would look at this stretch of games in this, at Montreal, at Ottawa, at Detroit, at Chicago as easy winnable games. But look, I mean, we were just talking before we turned the mics on here. I mean, Montreal has beaten Pittsburgh and Toronto at home. Ottawa's scoring 5-6 goals a game, just beat Dallas. Detroit had a really good start to the season. Chicago's rallying almost every night to beat teams. There's no easy games in this league, and so they've gotten off to a really subpar start. Their game against Colorado, I thought they played much better than they did definitely opening night against the Rangers, but didn't get the result there. Beat the Vancouver Canucks. Really could have lost that game if it wasn't for Flower late in that game. And then to me, the Boston game, Fleury did everything he could in the second half of that game to win them that game, and the Wild just shot themselves in the foot with bad penalties and things like that. So they've got to get their act together.
Speaking of Fleury and inconsistent starts, what Are you worried about Fleury this season? He's had seasons in the past where he's been a bit inconsistent. Not a great start to the year.
Yeah.
Do you see this being a thing that happens the whole year, or you think he'll bounce back?
Well, I was a lot more worried after the first 2 games where he gave up 11 goals in 2 starts. Pulled after, Dean Evason hates pulling goalies, and he pulled him after one period there. He basically had to. 4th goal, even Flower said was unacceptable. But what I love about Fleury is there's no finger pointing. He just pointed all the fingers at himself and said that he had to be better. And then watching him in practice the last couple of weeks, he just completely, the last week, he has just completely gone to work and tried to improve his game. And we saw, the Vancouver game, they could have easily had lost that game. And then same thing to me, in Boston, he made 9 saves in overtime on 2 penalty kills, and it's just a shame. You wonder if they get to a shootout or 10 seconds from a shootout, could they have won that game? And it would probably have a whole different complexion right now if they were, had a couple wins as opposed to one. And so I'm not as worried, but there is, his game, there's an out-of-controlness to it. Sometimes it's a little unnerving to watch. I know that's been his style for his whole career, but, when he really was winning a ton of games, he was a lot younger. And, can you, is he that same fast goalie that he was years ago that played this acrobatic style? I think that's the big question. And, but when I talk to Bill Guerin, he doesn't seem nearly as concerned. But, look, they want to overbake Jesper Wallstedt down in the minors, and so they're not bringing him up. So if Fleury flounders, Flower flounders, they're going to really need to rely on Philip Gustafsson, and I don't know. I'm more concerned actually about him and just his he's unproven, and right now so far in his 2 games that he's played hasn't looked very good.
I'm curious how much faith Dean Evason do you think has in Marc-André Fleury?
Well, I can't answer that question. Obviously, Dean, for the public record, says he has a ton of confidence in him, and he's got no choice, right? Flower is the guy, and so. But regardless, this is not just a Fleury issue. The first 5 games of the season, defensively, they are bleeding goals. They haven't competed hard in their own end. They're not structured in their own end. Their forwards aren't playing well. They're really. Not physical. They're not blocking shots. For this team, when you lose Kevin Fiala on his 85 points, you're not going to be able to win 6-5 games like they did a lot of last year and have these miracle comebacks like they did last year. They're going to have to start winning some 2-1, 3-2 hockey games, and do they have that makeup? That's the biggest question.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
You talk about losing Fiala, and we're going to eventually get there, but someone needs to make up that 85 points, and I guess one of the bright spots this season has been Kalen Addison taking PP1. You look at Matt Boldy. He looked fantastic last year, but I've been so impressed every time I watch him. When Vancouver played Minnesota, I know Kaprizov had 3 points, but I was most impressed with Matt Boldy. I just think he looks amazing. Talk about the development of the young studs, and that's got to be pretty exciting for the organization.
Yeah, Matt Boldy is an elite hockey player. He just there was a lot of worry. I think not worry. That's the wrong word, but there was a lot of wondering
that first
coming into this year. Well, just also coming into this year without Fiala, because it wasn't just Matt Boldy that took off with Kevin Fiala. It was Fiala also. I think a lot of people forget the fact that he really had a quiet first half of the season. When Boldy came up, he took off as well. So so there was all this concern that without Fiala, Boldy was going to be nothing. But the reality is that they both worked perfectly off each other. Yeah. And so Matt is a great hockey player. He competes. He's starting to hit people too. He protects the puck unbelievably well. Great skill, but what I like about him too is he's becoming a little more selfish now. Sometimes he does have the tendency to overpass, and what I like about it is because he no longer has that sort of veteran presence like Kevin Fiala on that line. He's starting to say, well, I got to beat the guy. There's no deferring to a veteran anymore. And so I think that's a really good sign, because to me, there's times where he just tries to pass too much. And so I think he's looked great. And as you mentioned, Kalen Addison on the power play looks outstanding. Leads all defensemen in assists, and their power play has been one of their bright spots for this year. so far, 5 games into the year. Obviously, could have scored on the 5-on-3 the other night. That would have changed that game in Boston. Didn't do that, a couple of them. But yeah, I do like what I'm seeing from these young guys, and we'll see if Marco Rossi can get there too. Or he's coming off his best game of the season, best game of his short NHL career the other night in Boston.
Yeah.
Speaking of Marco Rossi, I believe he has no points in 4 games. Obviously, still very early in the season, but a high draft pick. What do you see for him this season?
Well, I think that he's going to continue to get better. As I just said too, like that game in Boston, I think was reassuring because we saw a player that looked like he was trying to be more assertive, more confident. He had 3 or 4 really good scoring chances. He just needs to break that seal, and then he'll get much more confidence. He's still playing with Boldy, which I think is a good thing. He's going to make rookie mistakes. He skates the puck sometimes, like a lot of rookies do. Still have junior habits, skate the puck into a couple, oncoming forecheckers, and that's probably not a good thing. He did that the other night in Boston. But he is a very, very skilled player, and I think that he's just going to need time. I mean, he's 21 years old. He just needs time to just get his footing, get used to the speed of the game, the lack of time and space to make plays and things like that. Sometimes he just waits a little too long to sort of make that first decision to really, what to do with that puck. And I think that that's going to come with maturity. I think a lot of Wild fans, sometimes are getting a little too antsy because they've waited a while for him, but he obviously didn't play a full year. Yeah. He's 21 years old. And, not everybody could just step into the league and be elite. And sometimes it just takes time, and then you're going to get it. And I have a lot of faith in this kid's determination. I think he's going to get it.
I feel like it's so common now that a player just comes in right away, steps in and does crazy, and now people expect it almost.
Yep. Yeah,
but that's not the
I
way
agree.
It used to be.
No, it isn't. And I had a little rant on my podcast yesterday at some of the fans that are already calling him a bust, and he's played 6 NHL games. I mean, it's crazy. It takes a while sometimes. Not Joel Eriksson Ek's a great example. He's one of the best shutdown centers in the league. It took him 4 or 5 years. I mean, I was one of those people that thought they made a mistake not taking Besser, and Eriksson Ek turned out to be a great, great hockey player. I covered Olli Jokinen in Florida. He was basically between LA, the Islanders, then coming to Florida, his first couple struggling seasons in Florida, he was thinking of going back to Europe. And next thing you know, at age 24 or 5, he just becomes a 34-goal scorer. Yeah. Mikko Koivu is a great example. His first year in the NHL, 3 years older than Rossi, he played half the season, had 5 goals around Christmas, then went 46 games or something without a goal, scored in the season finale, and he's the all-time leading scorer in Wild history. Yeah. And so it takes a while to sometimes. Not everybody's gonna be Patrick Kane. Not everybody's gonna be Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and Ovechkin and Kovalchuk and all these guys that can just step in and be elite right away. Those are really special players. Yeah. And Rossi is gonna just continue to have to work. And I believe that 2, 3, 4 years from now, Wild fans are going to be kind of laughing at the fact that maybe they were a little concerned at this point in his career.
Kotkaniemi needs like 15 years to going, so.
Some guys just don't develop. But
no, are you one of those people that don't like him?
He had his jersey.
Story. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got his case. So when the reverse retro jerseys dropped the first time around. Habs had a pretty cool design because Habs have not had an alternate jersey since like 2009.
Right.
So for my birthday the year prior, he got me a Bo Horvat jersey.
Nice.
I'm like, I gotta get something. I had just had the C put on it too at that time, so it's like I gotta get something nice for him. But the reverse retro jerseys, you couldn't find them anywhere. I know a girl that I knew in high school that worked at the Habs team store.
Nice.
And I was like, is there any way I can get a reverse retro? Because I went to the store, empty. I looked everywhere, empty. And she's like, well, there's like a few in the back. There's one medium, and I'm like, honestly, if there's any way I can get that, like, I would love it. I had to get Kotkaniemi custom stitched on the back of it because he liked Kaka so much. And then I got it. Within 2 months, he signs the offer sheets.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
He never played a game while I had that jersey.
Well, you're probably the only one with a Kotkaniemi reverse retro story. Do you have to pay by letter? That's the question for the
Thankfully
stitching?
not.
I was gonna say.
With the price of it, maybe they charged me without even knowing, but they... No, thankfully not. That whole 2018 draft class, though, this year is really taking a step. It feels like Svechnikov's been looking great.
Yeah, but Svechnikov is, man.
He's something else.
He's so good.
Yeah, but I want to you talk about guys coming and making an impact right away. One of those guys who did it for the Wild is Kirill Kaprizov, and off to a really good start despite the underwhelming start of the Wild. 8 points, 5 games. He was a pretty common, look, the most common Hart pick is always going to be McDavid, and then people are going to throw Matthews. But I saw Kaprizov get a lot of traction, at least in our friend group, for that Hart conversation. Do you think that's something that's possible for him this season?
They're going to have to be much better to make, and actually it probably works out perfectly for him, because if they recover from this and make the playoffs skating away, he could be in that conversation. It's always going to be hard because of the media that, the Matthews of the world get, and the McDavids and people like that. But I mean, he got a lot of votes last year, and again, I think a lot of people forget that the definition of the award technically is most valuable to his team.
Yep.
And for the Wild to become the 5th best team in the league last year in terms of points, this is an organization that perennially doesn't have 30 goal scorers every year, doesn't have more than 60, 70 point guys every year. For him to get 47 goals and 108 points,
insane.
I thought it was something in the water in Minnesota or something, but for him to go there and reestablish everything that anybody ever thinks about the Minnesota Wild, I think that says something about him. He made the Minnesota Wild last season, other guys too, obviously, but he made the Minnesota Wild last season watchable.
It's super fun to watch.
I mean, I say this as somebody that obviously covers this team for a long time, but I think that the majority of hockey fans worldwide, in continent-wide, if the Minnesota Wild are coming on your television and you're not a Wild fan, you're probably changing the channel. But last year they were an entertaining team that scored, had the 3rd most goals in the league, were constantly coming back in games, scoring 6-on-5 goals, and he was a huge part of that. And so I think that he is right there as one of the top 10 players in the league already in that conversation.
Yep. I totally agree, and I'm gonna get a little spicy here.
Yep. And by the way, I mean, I'll say this, what Wild fans also need to remember, one reason why they got rid of Fiala is not just all these kids that they're gonna have to re-sign in the next couple of years. Kaprizov's going to name his salary in 3 years.
Yeah.
He's going to be a $14 million player. And I think Bill Guerin started to recognize that. Bill never thought that he was going to go to $9 million in year 1. And then you got Boldy coming, Wallstedt coming.
Yeah.
You're going to have to re-sign Rossi, all these guys. And, Boldy's about to get a mega deal. So, whether it's going to be a bridge deal, mega bridge deal, or mega long-term deal. And so that's one reason why they went that route with Fiala.
John, let's get to our favorite Canadian sportsbook, Bet99. When you guys register, use the link in our bio and make sure to use the code UNCONTESTED1. And whenever you bet, use our code UNCONTESTED1 for plenty of offers and rewards. Let's talk a bit about Bet99. Bet99 is a Canadian sportsbook and casino. They offer in-play betting, player props, a cash-out option, and many more great products. There are a variety of sports available on the website to bet on, including NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB, and MMA. Bet99 works smoothly on both desktop and mobile. The Bet99 mobile app can be downloaded from the homepage of the website. Depositing and withdrawing funds is hassle-free with a number of well-known methods available to use, so you know your money is safe and secure. The website can be viewed in both English and French, and customer service is available 24/7 on live chat. Go to bet99.com and make an account to get started. Please gamble responsibly. 19 plus, play responsibly, and check the bio for details on where it's available to bet on. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Canucks Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. Again, for all disclaimers on location and whatnot, check the bio and gamble responsibly. Obviously, this summer, there was a big storyline with everything happening in Russia and Kirill Kaprizov. You covered that, in my opinion, better than anyone else in the hockey world. You were very much... You had the pulse of that situation. You were updating everyone on it. But how close do you think it came to him not coming back?
I don't know if it ever got close because the Wild really were proactive. And actually, I mean, coincidentally, I was in the city when a lot of that reporting was done.
Yeah.
And it was a scary situation. I mean, really the problem getting him out of there had nothing to do with the whole military thing. The problem was, and I mean, coincidentally, I wrote the story that ran July 1 on how there were a lot of European players, not just Russians last year, that played without work visas. The reason why is because when you get a U.S. work visa, I mean, this is a whole convoluted type of thing. But when you get a U.S. work visa, if you're from Europe, you have to get a Canadian work visa, U.S. work visa, and then a secondary type of like P1. All the players got P1s because that's what you need to essentially work. But to get into the country, there was such a backlog, especially up here in Canada, of going to the consulates and getting these work visas that the NHL essentially made a deal with the U.S. Customs that they did not have to. That essentially would be an unwritten rule that a gentleman's agreement that when you come to Canada during your hockey season, you're going to go get this work visa, and you're going to go to the U.S. consulate. Well, the Wild had it set up with Kaprizov to go to Ottawa. That's where it had to be, Ottawa or Calgary.
Okay.
And to go to Ottawa, and he was going to get this. Well, in December, they canceled. I think it was December. All of a sudden, the Wild didn't go to Ottawa. And so then when they came here to Montreal, remember the whole thing with the attendance issues, and they canceled the games. So then when they came here in Montreal, that one-off game that you and I were talking about before where I didn't come to that game, it was just too difficult to get him to Ottawa to go get it done, an accelerated work visa. So he went home without it.
Wow.
And so when they tried to get him here, when he tried to go through Dubai, when all that military stuff came out, he tried to go through Dubai, and they wouldn't put him on the plane. It wasn't the country, it was the airlines that would not put him on a plane without proof of a work visa. So he tried 2 different airlines, couldn't get on, and then he went back to Russia. The Wild know very important people. Bill Guerin has some lawyers that he knows really well in Washington. It's extremely connected, knows a lot of diplomats. They got him to Turkey, and they were able to get him the visa. So I don't think it was close because the Wild were so proactive with it and got him here. They didn't mess around. I mean, they got him here like August 1st, back into the United States. The question is what happens after this season, right? I mean, does he go back?
Yeah.
That's going to be the interesting thing.
Classic Canada being on backlog for stuff. The passports here, the offices here in the summer.
Crazy.
There was lines like crazy.
Yeah.
Mental. I'm going to want to pass on the Cam Talbot stuff that we talked about before.
Okay.
Because I do want to talk about Vancouver with him. But before we do, tonight against the Habs, you mentioned the easy schedule. Doesn't mean anything if they don't make the wins count, though. What do you need to see from the Wild to give you that confidence that, like, we're back here?
I want to see them start defending well. I mean, this is a team, this Montreal team, they haven't had a ton of production so far, but they get more out-of-man rushes than anybody in the league, and the Wild give up a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, the other night in Boston, Flower had to stop breakaways, odd-man rushes left and right. So the Wild need to be better. And keep pucks in the offensive zone. So I just want to start to see them look like themselves. I have not witnessed them look like the Minnesota Wild yet. Kaprizov and Zuccarello look like they look, but nobody else. Dean Evason's blowing up the lines tonight. We're going to see, at least going into the game, Eric Sinek and Foligno, who are always joined at the hip. They're split. We're going to see Brodin and Dumba, who are always joined at the hip. They're split. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, Freddie Gaudreau is going to get a chance with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, but everything else, who knows what we're going to see.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I want to see from my perspective, because one thing that I'm thinking about writing tonight that is a huge concern of mine is that last year going into the year and the first 6 weeks of last season, there was a huge question who was going to be the number one center of the Wild.
Yeah.
And they were having a lot of trouble finding the right fit next to Zuccarello and Kaprizov. They tried Eric Sinek. They tried a laundry list of players.
Yeah.
And finally, Ryan Hartman goes there around, I think it was a game in New Jersey in November, and he was outstanding there. And then they solved their number one center issue with Hartman. Well, Hartman's off to a bad start. So now they're trying Gaudreau tonight, and what this is doing is, and Gaudreau is obviously not your prototypical number one center, so what to me this is reinforcing is they got a problem again. They don't have an obvious number one guy to put there. They don't have a Suzuki.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to, figure that out. They're not, even your team, Vancouver, I mean, they have a lot of warts, but up the middle, who's better than Pettersson, JT Miller, and Bo Horvat? I mean, that's pretty elite top 3 centers.
Yeah.
The Wild, other than Eric Sinek, really don't have that, and they seem to, because Eric Sinek didn't work there last year, or fit with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. They so far haven't gotten to that well yet. So that is a concern of mine right now.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see if there's a team to beat. It's the overperforming Montreal Canadiens. So we'll see if that happens.
Habs really aren't that scary, honestly. A little bit overrated.
Caufield
is scary. Yeah. we have him in fantasy. He's been super fun.
I
to
always
watch.
get nervous in these games when Caufield's going against Boldy, because if Cole just scores, Wild fans will be like, oh, they took the wrong guy.
Yeah,
that's always happens. It's
Yeah.
like there are certain guys like Eriksson and Besser are going to probably be compared
Always
to each other for the
compared,
rest of time. And same thing, like Wild fans are always going to look at Caufield versus Boldy. Wild fans always look at Trouba versus Dumba. Anytime you take somebody over somebody that's right
There's
there,
always going to be that comparison.
Yeah. So
no, for sure. But they're
There's an
Cole
article-
loves to score, but
Podman did an article for The Athletic a week ago, that he did a 2018 redraft. It was 2018, right?
Yeah, he had Boldy over Cole.
And he had Boldy one spot over Cole. He had Boldy at 6, Cole at 7.
who did this, Promen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you said Arpon for some reason. I'm like, Arpon did their 2018 redraft?
And it was a
and
good
they were on
race.
different. The thing that pissed you off about it is that they were on different tiers.
Exactly.
Boldy was on All-Star tier, and like Cole.
I don't
was
even
like,
think was he even on. I don't even think he was.
they were on. I remember Cole was like put on like fringe first line or like first liner or something,
He
and then
put fringe all star for
yeah,
Cole Caufield.
and then he put All-Star for Boldy, I think.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I
Lot
think
of rival-
Promen likes Boldy a lot. And
What's
then
not to
conversely,
like?
he's not a big Rossi guy. So,
Huh.
but Promen, that's the good thing about these things. It gets people talking, though.
Yeah.
Like you're never making everybody happy with those type of scores.
Definitely not in
So-
Montreal. But
Yeah.
we'll save the playoff question for the end when we do some rapid fire. I want to talk about the Vancouver Canucks because it's been a disastrous start. One of the losses come at the hands of the Minnesota Wild in what was probably one of Vancouver's. I know the analytics suggested that they definitely deserved to lose that game, but it was the first time they actually made it to OT. It was a good effort, but it's been a disaster. Like getting booed off the ice. JT Miller booed when he touched the pucks. Jerseys on the ice. What do you even do at this point? 0 wins.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, selfishly, I feel bad for Bruce.
Yeah.
Like he is under siege and he's in the last year of his deal. So right away, you're a lame duck coach. And then you get off to this start and you got Barry Trotz just sitting there waiting in the wings, living in BC. You just kind of know that at some point they're going to, make some sort of move. I saw Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford after the game in Minnesota, and they both look pissed. In fact, I have a great relationship with Jim Rutherford, and I went over to shake his hand after that game, and he looked like he wanted to punch me out. He gave me like one of those, like, are you really coming over to me right now?
Wow.
So he just gave me kind of like a fist bump, but that was it.
I felt terrible that he was scheduled on after hours on Saturday.
I know. I
Did you
didn't see that. So tell me what happened. I actually forgot to look at the video. What did he say?
Golden. He was just so honest. Like,
Yeah, he is honest.
Like all Vancouver was like salivating knowing that he was coming on. There was Sweet Caroline at the end of the game. Instead of singing along to like da da da, I was like boo boo boo. Like everyone was pissed. Rutherford's coming on the show, and even on Hockey Night in Canada, they knew that like it was kind of terrible timing for Rutherford. They're like, Rutherford's coming on, like whatever. And then he comes on, and I had no idea what to expect, but he was really honest. He's like, we might need a rebuild here. The defense, not adequate. He's like, I like Kyle Burrows, but we can't play him that much. He even said about Bruce Boudreau, he said when he came in, it was his understanding that he was the coach for the year. He said at the time he was the right coach. And he kind of implied that right now he might not be the best coach. And like, what kind of vote of confidence that give your coach?
Yeah.
He just ripped the team basically and said like, we might have to make some changes here. So
and for him to say that about a rebuild is interesting because obviously, the second they signed JT Miller to that extension, you're like, all right, well, they're kind of in win now mode now. They're not doing what Chicago did where they're actually trading like the DeBrinkets of the world. So like you almost felt like they're all right there in win now mode. The one thing I'll say about the Canucks that, and this is going to be me putting on my Bruce Boudreau apologist hat.
okay,
But their blue line is embarrassing.
it is terrible. Yeah,
And like I like Quinn Hughes a lot, but like when Quinn Hughes in Minnesota is your worst defense, that's a problem.
yeah.
And they their blue line is not adequate, and everybody saw that coming. So like their fourth line are their fringe AHL guys, in my opinion. Like
Lazar, Alma.
yeah,
and,
I mean like
Joshua.
no. Although Joshua, there were a lot that was funny. Canucks media just ripped into Bruce for taking Hollinger out
and then
playing
Joshua
Joshua.
scores
Then
too.
Joshua scores against Minnesota.
Oh yeah, he gets goal and assist.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel bad for Bruce. I don't know what's going on there. I thought there as Wild fans, actually, as Athletic fans might not know because I don't think we identify it. But if you go to our preseason predictions that we do as a staff, I was one of those people that said that Vancouver, there was a certain percentage of us that had Vancouver as a dark horse. I was one of those people because I really looked at them as like, all right, this division's weak, so I think that you're going to be able to peel off points. Mm-hmm. And to me, like when you have those centers up the middle, I just think that like, how do you not win with that? Yeah. Especially when you cover a team that doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So I'm very surprised at their start. Very surprised. I mean, they can't hold a lead. And the problem is there's some personalities in that room that are very aggressive. And when things go tough, they become bad. Yeah. And I think that's part of the issue in that room. I just and I've covered bad teams before. Like if you don't have trust in certain areas of your game, the entire game and the entire team craters, and that's what I'm seeing right now. Like Demko doesn't look like himself. Yeah. Demko to me should be a top 5 goalie in the NHL. He's not been anything close to that this year. Yeah. So it's a huge concern.
I'm just shocked that the rebuild is being brought up. Like I had them second in the division. Yeah. And I know that was high, but I never thought they would bring up a rebuild. I think this team it looks good on paper. Maybe I just listen to him all the time, so I get brainwashed. Yeah. But they just look good to me on paper in terms of their forwards, their goaltending. Yeah, their defense is weak, but they still have some names like Quinn Hughes. They should be better than what they're doing. Yeah. And I don't think it's Boudreau's fault either because when you're choking leads.
Yeah. Luke Shen is on their top pair.
Yeah, well. Yeah,
I love Luke Shen.
Now they're mixing it around.
Luke Shen would look incredible on the Wild's third pair.
Yeah, no,
incredible.
I agree.
Like Luke Shen is exactly what the Wild need. But like he should not be on a top pair in the NHL.
Oh no chance. And like to build on what John's saying, like I don't think like people are talking fire Bruce. Like what's that going to do? Like the players in there should be embarrassed. Like they're not 21, 20 anymore.
Yeah,
like
obviously this can't go on forever. But if I was Vancouver at this point, and I feel bad for Bruce. But if you really are saying, all right, this is a lost cause to make the playoffs this year, and we're going to rebuild, well, then what's the use of firing Bruce? Literally, you might as well let him go down with the ship, and then you don't waste your bullet on bringing in a guy. Mm-hmm. Like it's the old. I forget who it was in Buffalo years ago where you just knew they wanted a new coach, but I think it was Tim Murray was the GM, and you just knew that they were just going to lose as many games with whoever he had as a coach, and then eventually you get the coach, right? Yeah. And that's kind of what I see here. It's like at this point, really, if you're really saying we're going into a rebuild, that blue line's not good enough to win. So I don't know what the point of firing Bruce is unless you just want to save some, him from having a heart attack at some point because Bruce is not going to be handling this well.
And also, like, if you want to have some hope for them, the problem is that they have so many injuries now. I don't know how long-term they are, but it seems like all their top guys are injured now.
Yeah, it's getting rough for sure. Pettersson, obviously a bright spot. He's been tearing it up. But why, like, we're tight for time here, so we'll move on after this to some rapid fire. But, like, why would he even want, like, I love Pettersson. Like, his name probably appears more in my room, around my room, than my own name does. But like, why would he want to stay?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why you'd maybe want to stay is that you absolutely love Vancouver. Like, that's not the bad place to play.
No, it isn't.
Like that. I would move to Vancouver in a minute. Yeah. So, so that would be the one thing. And then obviously, like, there are certain guys like him and Brock Besser are like this. Yeah. But Besser might not be long for there, right?
Who knows?
So, I sorry to keep on looking at my phone.
No, you're good.
Every time it beeps this time of year, when your team is 1-3-1, you got to check and make sure they didn't kill. Like,
imagine breaking news on Uncontested.
Yeah, I know. But to your point, why would he stay? I can't say that I have a great answer other than yes, it would make sense for him not. Yeah. But you never know, right? I mean, my gut says that he could be available at some point. I'm not saying necessarily now via trade, but I'm saying you're right. I mean, if he's going to start to give them any indication that he's not going to sign there long term in a year, then you got to look to move him. I know one team that could use him. So.
Yeah, first line center.
Do you hate the offseason? With Bench Clears, you'll be able to rep your team's colors all year long. Bench Clears is the most comfortable hockey tank you'll ever wear. Their tanks are 100% polyester, making them incredibly soft and breathable, as well as having a clear design completely flush with the fabric. On top of their high-quality tanks, they have just released their new hockey shorts, women's racerback shirts, and hockey sunglasses, all available with your favorite team's design. To order, go to their website, benchclears.com, also available in the description, and use the promo code UncontestedSports10. That's UncontestedSports10. All sizing and info is available right there.
So anyways, you came on the show last summer. We wrapped up with some rapid fire, regular way for us to wrap up. So are you ready for that again? Even though it's not really that much of rapid fire.
And I guarantee I was like the worst rapid fire person because I'm like incapable of saying like one word.
No, you were not. The worst rapid fire today. And he's friends of the show. We still talk to him. So hopefully I'm not burying him too hard. But that was Craig Button. We had him.
Craig Button.
We asked him favorite World Junior Championship win. And he's like, the 1988 World Juniors was so awesome because you had this guy. And it was like 3 minutes, 4 minute answer.
It's impossible to keep Craig Button, to be not long-winded. That's for sure. That's why all of us in media use him.
Oh,
so
man.
I love
him, though.
Yeah, I love calling him to just ask him about any opinion on players because he just fills up the notebook, as we say in the business.
Yeah, no, he's the best there is. But let's get into it now. For you, as a media guy, I mean, you started covering the Panthers, I believe. What was your welcome to the NHL moment from the media perspective?
Probably the Bure trade. That was that was huge. Yeah, it was like an 8-piece trade, and just getting to cover that guy.
Yeah.
Again, you were getting long-winded, but I covered a Florida Panther team that I don't know if in my first 3 or 4 years I saw a breakaway.
Wow.
And then his wild debut were on Long Island, Nassau Coliseum. Robert Svala hits him for a home run pass. He goes on his breakaway, the back of his freaking number 10 jersey, he's like hovering in the air.
Yeah.
Flies in, scores, beats I think Chris Osgood or something in this breakaway, and I'm like, holy crap! Like I am actually finally covering a superstar, and he scored 58 and 59 goals in clutch and grab era for the Panthers.
That's crazy. Yeah. This isn't super actually like rapid fire now that I'm reading that list of questions. So do not worry about keeping it short, because as a Canucks fan, I want to know favorite Bruce Boudreau story.
Favorite Bruce Boudreau story. The first one that popped. I mean, this one's gonna be.
And I know what it's
gonna
be.
One.
I think I know what it's gonna be.
When I made him walk off the stage and.
I thought you were gonna say the hotel when he slept in with the fire alarm going.
Oh, that was unbelievable. Yeah. we were in Vancouver and he the fire alarm went off at the they were staying at like the Hotel Georgia or something, or maybe they were staying at the Pacific, not the Pan Pacific, but the Pacific Rim.
Okay.
Maybe
forget
what it is. Fairmont Pacific Rim. It was one of those two hotels. Remember, there was like an actor that died at that Pacific Rim. I can't remember, like a famous, I can't remember who it was. Some young guy. Anyway, but yeah, like the next day, everybody's talking about it. And I asked Bruce about the fire alarm. And he's like, "What fire alarm?" I'm like, "Well, that's not good." But no,
sorry, I want to hear that.
My favorite one. I mean, anytime you can sit down with Bruce, it's a laugh. Like I had dinner with him the other night in Minnesota, and laughing the entire time. I think he probably needed to get away from everybody. But my favorite one is and we talk about it all the time, is the Wild fall down 3-0 in their series against St. Louis the year that they were an unbelievably good team. And I was hammering him on Martin Hansel playing on a line with I think Niederreiter and Ryan White, and it just was terrible in the series. And he got so pissed at me, he just storms off the stage. That was the last question while they were down 3-0. Anyway, like to me, it was just at that moment, it was just like in my eyes, it was just a normal reporter, testy coach situation. I didn't think anything of it, but I forget in this Twitter era. So I go upstairs, I write my article. Mm-hmm. I look at Twitter like about midnight, and the video is out. It blew up. Everybody was like tweeting at me like holy crap, are you guys okay? Like it became like this huge story in the NHL, and to me it was nothing. Yeah. And so actually, but it was such a big story even overnight that the next morning at practice, I went up to Bruce. I'm like, hey, you and I okay? And he goes, yeah, why wouldn't we be? It was like even to him, it was just a normal like testy coach reporter situation. So yeah, I don't know why that's my kind of it's not my favorite Bruce Boudreau story, but it's definitely my first one that popped in my head. I've had so many really good sit downs with him. My first ever article at The Athletic, I did a tour of Bruce Boudreau's house in Minnesota and his like museum downstairs of just stuff that he's had over the years. My first story, that big like kind of feature I did on the road, was in the Vancouver at the Pacific Rim Hotel. He's eating this like cheese, like white cheddar cheese popcorn as we're doing the interview. He's getting it all over himself. But this story about all the movies that he loved. And, he was in Slapshot. I used to do these Russo radio. We called it Brusso Radio. Every Labor Day I did a live show with him at the State Fair for 3 hours. I did an incredible story on him and his mom. His mom coming to his first game in Toronto and doing this like lovely story on him and his mom, who's still with us. I've had a lot of really cool moments with Bruce over the years.
That's so cool.
I have this hilarious video. He's got this gigantic dog. I mean, gigantic. It's like 150 pounds. I forget the name of it. And I got this hilarious video of his dog getting stuck on this like. I was at his house watching playoff hockey one year, and his dog's trying to go catch the cat that's up the stairs, like taunting him. Yeah. And they had like this like baby gate on the staircase to keep the dog from going upstairs, and the dog's like decides to like, well, I'm gonna go after this cat, and gets caught like halfway. I'll show you this video when we're off, and gets caught halfway. And Brady, his son, is like saying, "I'm told you not to do it," and this poor dog is stuck halfway over, can't get like over the gate and back on the other side. It was just hysterical. So
that's crazy. Bruce Boudreau, man. I don't know. It's very evident how close you guys are. Like, even when he got hired, the first thing he did was go on your podcast. It's pretty cool to see. I like him.
Yeah, he's a sports writer's dream. I mean, you cover him. I mean, I don't know how much it is in Vancouver because, like Minnesota, everybody thinks of it as this gigantic hockey market, but media-wise, it's not, right? Really? You got 2 newspapers in The Athletic, but then from that point on, it's like the TV stations don't really come out all the time. It's not like in Vancouver where there's 100 people and you can't really gain a relationship with the coach. And so, Minnesota is a lot different. It's just a lot more, laid back from that standpoint. So.
Yeah. Yanni, I'll let you read off the next one over there if you want.
Are we going all of them?
Yeah, well, the next one seems like a fun one.
Yeah?
Well, I don't know. I want to know what Marc-André Fleury's like.
Oh, he's been awesome to deal with. Actually, again, another Montreal story last time at the draft. I went over to his house in Varennes. Is it Varennes, I think? Varennes. Is that the name of the town?
I don't even know the town. I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, so it's like
where is he from?
It's like 40 minutes from here. And that's where he lives now. It's not where he's from.
Oh, okay.
It's like halfway between. He lives halfway between Montreal and where he grew up. Mm-hmm. And went over to his house and did our NHL '99 story with him. And it was a blast to just kind of see him in that element and him at peace in his house and family man and all that stuff. I show up and he's like, can I make you a sandwich? Like he's typical friendly flower. It's been a lot. Even though he's off to a rough start, this is the way you want to cover a guy like Marc-André Fleury. Last year during the pandemic, even though it was technically like the after pandemic, like sort of like where it felt like we were getting back to normal, we still weren't in the locker rooms. And when you're in the locker room with Marc-André, that's when you get a lot of really cool stuff and anecdotes and fun little stories and shooting the shit and things like that. And so I've long been a fan of him. I've long had a bit of relationship with him just from covering the league longevity-wise. Like I covered that Vegas Golden Knights run for The Athletic. And so he's just, to me, he's just what you see is what you get with him. He's the nicest guy.
Oh, that's awesome. What do you...
In an era, Lewis is more on Twitter than I am. I'm not on Twitter like at all. But I know Twitter gets really heated. He sends me stuff all the time. Are you one to get into Twitter?
Yeah, debates? I can't help myself. I got into it today with some guy that's like the Tartan High School JV coach.
Oh my god!
Yeah, just a piece of crap. Absolute piece of garbage guy. I couldn't help myself. Like all day I was trying to ignore it, and I work myself up where eventually I go back. That's why I block so many people, because then I like hope that I'll never even like remember to go find them again. Yeah. Because even like if I mute somebody, like eventually I'll go back and go at them. Yeah. And this guy has gotten just under my skin the last couple of days. But I do get it. I don't know why. I have a personality that's combative. I'm Italian. I'm from New York. My dad is my dad. He's combative. Yeah, I get into and every single time I do it, I feel like less of a like just total asshole.
Well, don't stop doing it. We love
it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I try to like pride myself on professionalism, and then I do these stupid stuff on there that I just can't help myself. And
we love it.
I always say the day that I quit this job, that I retire, is the day that I go off Twitter forever. Like,
wow.
it is not good for your mental health.
We gotta get your phone number or something.
Like, you've got to
can't lose you.
You've got to really. The one thing I did do this summer, I was really good at taking a step back and not. I've become Craig Button. I just realized on these rapid fire questions.
No,
but I took a step back this summer where I really didn't look at my mentions, and it was so much better for my mental health. And during hockey season, especially with the team struggling, it's just people fighting on my timeline, and all that negativity it does wear you down.
Oh, for sure.
And to me, I am somebody that uses Twitter as a vehicle. Like, a lot of people are like, just don't look at it. But to me, like, I want to look at what the fans are thinking. Like, the fans the last couple of days have been asking, why is Freddie Boudreau on the top line? Well, that was like one of those things where it's like, well, yesterday at practice, I really didn't get the answer. So today, because fans want to know, I'm asking that question to Dean Evason at the morning skate. So, like, to me, Twitter is valuable from that standpoint.
For sure.
Or during a game, you know, like, there's stuff that you miss in a press box. You know, you're looking at your computer, you're tweeting, all of a sudden you don't even see that a guy got hurt, guy's been benched. And fans all of a sudden be like, where's Zuccarello? And then you're like, I didn't even know Zuccarello wasn't out there. You know, like, so to me, it's like Twitter is good, but man, I wish I would stop just being such an immature baby on Twitter. Sometimes.
Well, we love it. And as far as the rapid fire, these questions are not even close to rapid fire, but we know that you got to go here, so we'll keep it extremely short and hit you with some actual rapid fire questions. Wild and the Blues replay each other. Series starts tomorrow. Who wins that series, in your opinion?
Blues.
Really? Wow. Yeah. From the outside, at least from like Montreal's market, like looking at Minnesota, they look like a super tight team. Who's someone on the team that you find extremely enjoyable to interview, to work with?
Other than Fleury.
Other than Marc-André.
Other than Marc-André Fleury. God, there's so many guys on this team. I mean,
you
honestly,
can name three if you want.
Yeah, I mean, Kaprizov is jovial. Obviously, you know, from a relation standpoint, that hasn't really been built yet just because of his lack of English. I mean, who I find enjoyable to cover, I mean, I love Jared Spurgeon. I love Marcus Foligno. And I'll go, let's see, a third one. Let me just really quick in my head just go through the lines. Really like Ryan Hartman. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I was not
really
expecting
like
him.
Hartman.
As a Canucks fan, I do not like Ryan Hartman.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
No, I mean, I could name 20 other guys. I mean, that's the good thing about this team. Like, Freddie Boudreau is the nicest human being in the world. You know, like those type of things. You know, Zuccarello is hilarious. Even though he and I do not have the greatest relationship.
Really?
Dumba's got a great heart. You know, those type of things. Brodin's, you know, same thing. He's just nice.
No, it's very evident.
Jake Middleton's a really funny, hilarious guy.
Really?
I'm doing a really funny feature with him here in the next couple days.
Oh, wow. No, he's he does not play like a very nice guy on the ice. He's a mean guy to play
Middleton?
against, but it's very evident that they're a close team, and it's very evident how close you are to the team. So,
well, you know, just to you know, like what you just said about the way that Middleton plays. I mean, you know, Luke Shannon is that way. Luke is a prick to play against, but my guy, like, I don't know if you know him in the room, but I mean, he is a great guy. You know, that type of thing. And most guys are like that. You know, most of those players. Like Josh Manson, I loved covering him during the Stanley Cup final last year, but you don't want to play against him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just Ryan Reeves. Like, God, is there a better interview in the league?
Yeah.
You know, but would you want to go up against him? Can you imagine taking that fist to your face?
Yeah, can you imagine taking Arbor Jackie's fist? I wonder if we're going to see him go tonight. But last question here, because we debate it all the time. And Kyle Bukoskis, when he was on our show last time, we didn't even ask him, and he brought it up and referred to Montreal as being this thing. So it kind of fueled the debate again. What do you look at?
We've asked him already this, no?
No, we didn't.
We didn't ask him? Okay.
Do you think that Montreal is the Mecca of hockey?
We didn't ask him this.
Do I think that Montreal is the Mecca of hockey? I'd say yes. That's interesting that Kyle said that. I had dinner with Kyle in West Palm Beach at the Jams meetings. He's a great, great guy.
Oh, yes. He's the best.
Is it the Mecca? I think it is. I mean, you know what? Boston's about to celebrate its 100th year season. I mean, Montreal's been here forever. It's the birthplace of this league, basically. You know, right down the road where I'm taking a train tomorrow at the Queen Elizabeth, right? Isn't that where the NHL was essentially born?
I don't even know that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I think he's right, yeah.
Unless I'm getting it confused with the Queen Elizabeth in Toronto, but I'm pretty sure it was right there.
Wow.
But hey, I could be wrong and making a fool out of myself right now. But is Montreal the Mecca? I mean, what I love about Montreal, like I tell anybody that ever asks me, like it's not, I wouldn't say it's my favorite city to visit, but fans that ask me if I was going to go to one road city to see a game, where would it be? And that's here. You know, like I covered an exhibition game here once where the freaking Wild, I think, beat them like 6-0, and everybody was in the stands at the end of the game. You know, like they have the biggest media in the world. Red Fisher was from here. You know, like they are. This is the place. I mean, look, Flower gets his 500th win here last year. What home team is gonna like serenade the visitor? Even though it's Flower, I get that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. This is a great place to. Every time I come here, I don't take it for granted. Yeah. But you don't agree.
Pod's over. No, I can see John's just loving it. But no, for real, we gotta let you. I'll let you.
Speaking of the massive Habs market, I mean, we haven't been able to get a hold of anybody so far.
Yeah, it's so hard to get in contact with anyone on the Canadian side.
Really?
We've shot probably literally over 30 direct messages. Some people
30
for
How
sure.
many have you shot?
For at least 15.
Have you tried to get ARP on?
Yep.
All right, I'll put him on the spot tonight. I'll say I had these guys come to my actual room and do this podcast.
We would love
do
that.
One with
we
him.
would freak out.
Arpon's the best too.
We can't even get a hold of him. For him, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
So even like Eric Engels and Marc-André
and some of these guys, we chased them right off because they'll leave their
Renaud.
email.
None of these guys. I'll put them all on the spot today.
No way. I love it. Thank you so much. Maybe we can get some Habs content. But for real, we held you 8 minutes past 5 o'clock here, and I know you got to get to the game. So thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime, David. Anytime, John.
And we'll be talking. Hopefully, you'll be back on again sometime soon. Good luck to the Wild. Good luck with all your coverage of everything. Keep doing what you're doing. It's such a treat to read and see your work and follow you on Twitter and everything
guys.
like that.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. So if you liked what you watched, hit that sub button. Help us out. We're making the push for 700 right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, comment what you think. That's a wrap.